Program is brought to you by Emory University.
Last year when you were at Emory and you gave your annual lecture, you used the words, we are all dreaming creatures. To dream is to create. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to share with us something about your creative process, how it begins, what has influenced you as you've been working on a new work or as you look back on your earlier works.
The awful thing is that there is no consistent process, and that's to say each book seems to have its own way of showing up. But I think one of the things that I have noticed is that the books that I end up writing tend to be books that have been in my head for quite a long time. And in fact, the fact that these ideas stick around in my head is one of the clues that I have that maybe I should pay attention to them. So, I mean, for instance, I've just finished this historical novel, which takes place in 15th, 16th centuries, and describes a couple of journeys back and forth between the Europe of the High Renaissance and the India of the Mughal Empire. And although the particular story of the book is not something that I had in my head for a long time, the idea of wanting to write both about the kind of Machiavellian Florence and about the court of the Emperor Akbar in India were thoughts that I'd had. It never actually occurred to me they'd be in the same book. But those were things that have been lodging in my head. Because, by training, I'm not a literature person. I'm a history person. And that's I never studied literature. Thank goodness. I mean, what I mean by that is I think it has actually been very helpful to me in the kind of writer that I've become, that I studied history. Because although I've forgotten almost all the history I ever learned, what lodges with you, it is really helpful, is this thing called historical method. Which is how do you make sense of the past? How do you look at a kind of massive event and try and judge what's meaningful and what isn't, and that piece of learning about how you make sense of things, is actually very useful for fiction writers as well as non-fiction writers.